Hello, all of you vaingloriously wonderful people. The Glitchwalkers expansion for Astroneer is now available, so I thought it was the perfect time to drop a walkthrough guide to help you make your way through the new gameplay. This is not going to be an unedited playthrough. It is more of a highlight of each point through the expansion, along with some pro tips I've picked up playing through it a few times. This is going to be a long video, so I have included timestamps to help you skip to sections you might need help with. This is not a review. If you want to know what I think of Glitchwalkers, then be sure to check out my no spoilers review. Also, if there is something not covered in my walkthrough, that is because I probably already touched on it in my Glitchwalkers Q&A video. There is a lot to cover, so let's get started. But fair warning, this guide is full of non-stop spoilers. The events of Glitchwalkers are, essentially, a continuation of things from Awakening. In that series of missions and interactions with Eva, we learn that we are trapped inside of the training simulation, and that each of our adventures are all unique instances of that training simulation. We also learn that a mind bank is storing the consciousness of each Astroneer, though its integrity has been threatened, and some Astroneers will not be able to leave the Astroneer training program due to data loss. We also learn that, even though we were unaware of it, much of our adventure leading up to Awakening was actually an effort to help restore communications so those working to repair the training simulation can send messages to Exodynamics. That storyline even found Eva suggesting that, perhaps, we would one day see new worlds. If you have not yet played through all of the Awakening story, I would suggest doing so before you begin Glitchwalkers. Everything you learn from Awakening will give you a better understanding of how and why a hacker could even become an adversary for us. You actually kick things off for Glitchwalkers in a base game save. Whether you start a new save or use an existing save, you will need to complete the mission or core concept before you can begin Glitchwalker stuff. That's the mission that requires you to activate the core of a planet. If you are wanting to get right to the expansion, then use a save where you have already completed the core concept. If you're in a new save, you will need to find and power a gateway chamber and then activate a gateway engine in the core first. Assuming you have a core concept completed, you should have a mission from Frank. Is this thing on? Read through the mission text, then push the big green button to complete it. That will take you right into the Hey Ya mission. Again, read through the text, then push the big green button. I kinda dig that the button has Frank's icon on it. Nice little detail there. Hey Ya leads into maintenance issue, and it's the same thing. Read the text, push the button. And you definitely should read the text of all these missions if you are at all interested in the story of what is happening, because Frank does explain quite a bit. Pushing the big green button in maintenance issue leads into Storms a Brewin', and this one trips up a lot of people. The mission instructs you to interact with a landing pad terminal, which is kind of exactly the very thing you were doing if you were seeing this mission. Push the big green button, right? Well, no. The wording isn't really clear here, but close the mission log, then reopen it. That completes the requirement for the mission, and you can claim a reward of a ruby, along with the unlocked schematic for ruby in the research catalog. Ruby is one of Frank's inventions, and is used to collect storm data from the hotspots that you will see swirling about inside of storms. It will draw power at a rate of 5 units per second, but like everything else in Astroneer, it will work even if not fully powered. It'll just be slower. Ruby must be placed on a platform connected to power or on a vehicle with power in order to function. We will see Ruby in action in just a moment. In the base game, the Ruby is the only new addition to the research catalog. Back to the mission log, and we have the new mission, No Place Like Home, in which Frank instructs us to use a ruby in a storm to collect encrypted data from a hotspot. Storms occur on every planet and moon except for Silva. You can easily see them from orbit, and your compass will have a nav point helping you locate the storm when you are on a planet's surface. So, let's head into a storm. It is worth pointing out that while the storms in the Glitchwalkers planet of Aoeluz will always be in the same location, the storms on the existing planets can move from time to time. I haven't yet worked out what the conditions are for the storms to move, but I have seen them dissipate right in front of my eyes, with them reappearing at a different location. So if the storm does a disappearing act, just use your compass to figure out where it is. If you have Ruby deployed, the small radar-like dish on its top will always point in the direction of the storm, which is a nice little detail. That seems to work even when Ruby is turned off, which is kind of handy. As you near the edge of the storm, this glitchy pattern appears. If you walk or drive in, it opens a bit, granting you passage. But did you hear that sound? And do you see that round circle just over my head? Yeah, pay attention to that. You're being hacked, and that icon is essentially a timer counting down until the hack is complete. As the hack progresses, you see visual changes to both your backpack oxygen tank and the built-in battery. If the hack is completed, those things stop working and you immediately begin to suffocate. Don't panic though, you simply need to head back out of the storm to reset the hack, and then you can safely head back in. You can also move to the eye of the storm, as there is a nice safe hack-free spot there. By the way, your snail friends will not help you here. You can still suffocate and be sent back to your shuttle or shelter for a reprint, even if you have Princess and Stilgar. I guess they get hacked too. So yeah, the storms are a dangerous place, but now you know how to deal with it. So let's get some storm data. Look for one of the swirling vortices within the storms. These are the hotspots that Ruby can collect data from. You don't have to get the Ruby right dead center inside of the hotspot, just being pretty close is good enough. Turn on Ruby and you both hear and see that it is collecting data, and a storm data nugget will begin to form on Ruby's output. You really only need one of these to complete the current mission, but if you want a bunch, you can attach some storage to the platform or vehicle to collect them. They even work with resource canisters, so I guess if you want 2,000 of them, you could do that. It should be pointed out, however, that these hotspots will move within the storm. If that happens, you can do one of two things. First, you can just wait. Most hotspots eventually wind up back in the same locations, but that's kind of boring. Instead, you can just relocate the Ruby to another hotspot and keep collecting storm data. When the Ruby is fully powered, each nugget of storm data only takes a few seconds to collect. And here's a little pro tip. Instead of worrying about being hacked while inside the storm, go in, get Ruby set up in a hotspot, then leave it there and head back out of the storm. Then stand right on the edge so the glitchy pattern opens up, but don't quite enter the storm. You will be able to keep an eye on Ruby to make sure it is collecting storm data, but you won't have to worry about being hacked. This pro tip may not seem all that important right now, but the hacks on Aoeluz will complete much faster, so it's good to get some practice in now. Once you have your storm data, drop it into any research chamber to complete the current mission. You can also use additional storm data in the research chamber to obtain some research bytes. It's not a lot, but they do scan really fast. The new mission, Bootstrapped for Cash, is another read the text, push the green button situation. That leads you into thinking with portals. Definitely read the text on this one, then hit the button to receive the glitch portal anchor via your landing pad. This anchor looks like the same little bits you receive for the Snails and Rails mission and works much the same way. Take it to a bit of open space and deploy it. When you do, what is in my opinion one of the coolest looking things in Astroneer appears, the glitch portal. Take a moment to appreciate the really cool effects swirling around this thing. It is almost as if it is disrupting the space around it. That leaves one final mission in the base game, Fool's Rush In. Pay attention to the text in this one because it tips you off that you will not be able to take anything into the expansion with you. None of the stuff on your backpack, none of your research bytes, not even the 2,000 of every resource you went full-on tryhard to create. Not one bit of it will be available in the expansion. You will be starting over once you land on Aoeluz. With that cheerful thought in mind, head back to the glitch portal and hit the indicated input to use it. When you do, a cool little cutscene plays, followed by a bit of confusion. Yeah, most people who saw this in my recent live stream reacted with, "What? You're looking at a starting menu. Weird." But look closely and you'll notice a few things. First of all, that planet in the background isn't Silva, and there's a big ominous figure staring down at the planet. Second, look at the text near the top of the menu, Return to Silva system. That is your clue that you have loaded into the menu for the Aoeluz system, and I'm gonna pause here for a moment. I'm not really sure why we need a different menu. If you select Return to Silva system, you will see the loading solar system screen, then you'll be back on the Silva menu. But here's the thing. You can select your saves from either menu and you will still load into the proper solar system. Glitchwalkers saves have this funky purple icon next to them, so you know which saves are which. I don't know why they didn't just put 2 new entries, start a new Glitchwalkers adventure and start a new Glitchwalkers creative game. I guess they really wanted you to see Aoeluz and Blitz in the background. Anyway, select Start a New Adventure Game and you will launch from the LREV and down to the surface of Aoeluz. Exit the dropship and your shelter and landing pad are deployed. Welcome to Aoeluz. If you want a tour of the different biomes of Aoeluz, be sure to check out my No Spoilers review video. We're ready to kick things off in Glitchwalkers, so open up the mission log on the landing pad, read the text in Bad Connection, and then head over to the glitch shelter and open up Frank's manual. And you know, this is probably a good time to quickly tour the glitch shelter because it has some key differences from other shelters. First, this is Frank's manual, and it contains some pretty useful information you will want to read. To the left of that, there is a D-cipher built into the shelter that cannot be removed. This is where you will be depositing storm data and other items, plus you can interact with it to view its control panel. The glitch shelter also has the usual power cable plugs, a built-in oxygenator that cannot be removed, 2 sets of medium storage slots, and 1 single small storage slot. If you check out its roof, you can see its built-in RTG, which actually looks pretty cool. So, back to Frank's manual. Open it up, initiate the reboot, and now you can read each entry. The first 2 are fairly important. It usually defaults to Research Catalog Restoration, which explains the current state of the Research Catalog. If you open the Research Catalog, some items are unlocked, while others require bytes to unlock them. But there is a third status beyond just unlocked or locked: hacked. If an item is currently hacked, no amount of research bytes can unlock it until it becomes restored. As you progress through the gameplay loop in Glitchwalkers, more and more of the research catalog will become restored, and almost everything will eventually become available. The only items that remain permanently hacked are the Exo Request Platform, the Probe Scanner, and the Fault Finder. Additionally, most of the items that are usually only unlocked through missions will be automatically unlocked once they are restored. Think things like the hoverboard, extra large resource canister, VTOL, etc. Now, let's check out the top entry in Frank's manual in case of emergency. This is, in my opinion, the most important piece of information in the entire expansion. You are looking at, essentially, the majority of the gameplay loop. You'll be completing these things 3 times before you get to the final in-game missions, and this information can be helpful if you forget the order of operations. I'd suggest reading through the other 4 entries in Frank's manual as well, since they do contain some useful information about key elements of Glitchwalkers. Now, let's head back to the landing pad to claim the reward for Bad Connection, the Vault Seeker. If you have completed any of the Wanderer gameplay using the Probe Scanner, the Vault Seeker will feel very familiar. You can activate it from your backpack or vehicle aux slots, and it will consume a bit of power while active. When active, it will add a nav point to your compass indicating the location of the current vault. While it isn't really all that useful right now because we can see the first vault from where we're standing, it will be pretty much mandatory for the other 2 vaults. Take a look at the mission VPN message and check out its requirements. We need to find the Alpha Vault. Easy since we can see it. Obtain an Alpha Rootkit and submit that Rootkit to the D-cipher. A bunch of new terms there that might not make sense, so let's work through it. I would suggest looking around your starting area. some compounds should be nearby. Grab a few nuggets and create some tethers. You might need them as we make our way to the vault. Oxygen filters made from resin can get the job done as well. Take a look at the Alpha Vault, paying attention to the orange area near the top. Each side has a small panel that is currently missing and features a small storage slot. If you interact with the Alpha Vault and use the indicated input to activate it, the orange area at the top illuminates and small square patterned pieces called keys appear in those empty slots. But you aren't finished. Some of those keys may already be illuminated, while others may appear dim. If they are dim, they are in the incorrect position and need to be adjusted. Some keys may just need to be rotated around where they are in order to match the surrounding pattern, but others may be in the wrong slot altogether. If a key cannot be matched up to the surrounding pattern in its current slot, simply remove it and move on to the next key. It is a pretty simple puzzle, and you will eventually get all 4 in the right slot and aligned properly. When a key is in the right slot and rotated to match the surrounding pattern, it will illuminate and you will hear an audible signal letting you know that key is complete. If, for any reason, you want to start over, or if you somehow misplace one of these keys, you can interact with the Alpha Vault again and select Resupply, which will reset all 4 keys back to where they started. Once you get all 4 keys aligned properly, a large drawer pops open on one side and it contains the Alpha Rootkit. Pick that up, then head back to your glitch shelter and place the Rootkit into the D-cipher on the side of the shelter. This completes the VPN message mission, and you can open the mission log to claim the rewards, which unlocks the schematics in the research catalog for the Beacon, Ruby, Vault Seeker, and Portable D-cipher. This also opens a new mission, Recompile, so let's check that out. You are going to need to use a Ruby to obtain storm data from the Alpha Storm you can see swirling nearby in order to get level 2 storm protection and to generate a Counterhack key. Let's put a pin in that mission and get a small base set up. Why are we setting up a base? Well, you need at least a small printer to create a Ruby, so it seems like a good time to do it. So gather some resin and compound, which are available in large deposits all throughout this starting region. Create your small printer and get it attached to power. I would suggest creating a medium printer and platform to hold it, along with a research chamber and a platform for that as well. And maybe create a few small generators to help with power. You will eventually be unlocking stuff in the research catalog again, so you may as well start getting some research bites. You can easily find research objects for the research chamber in the large geometric structures in this region, plus you can occasionally find other research objects under the small bushes that have scannable research samples. Oh, and yeah, these research samples are practically everywhere in this region, so scan them every time you see them because they're all worth at least 100 bytes. There are also a handful of exo research aids you can open with a small generator, and they contain some pretty valuable research objects. If you start getting research now, you will have a good amount of research bytes available as items become restored in the research catalog. In fact, all throughout your adventure, scan every research sample you find, open every exo research aid you can, and keep research going non-stop. Amass a bunch of bytes as early and as quickly as you can because they will definitely come in handy later. You will also want to create a soil canister or two as you will definitely be needing them throughout your time on Aoeluz. Okay, cool. You have a small base going. Let's get a Ruby. For that, you need 1 resin and 1 quartz, and you can create it on the small printer. Quartz is fairly easy to find in this starting region, so just look around near your base and you will probably spot some. With your Ruby created, leave it packed up for now, and let's start thinking about heading into the storm. We have just a bit of prep work to do first. Remember, Ruby requires power, so it must be placed on a platform or a vehicle. Since we don't have a smelter available yet, we can't go with a vehicle, so the only option is a platform. The medium platform C is unlocked and only requires a single resin, so that will be perfect for our needs. You can go with any platform you wish, but I like this one due to its low resource cost. You will also need something to power Ruby, and since I have yet to find any power producers laying about in the starting region, the small generator will be the way to go. You can create as many as you wish, but you really only need 1. Though if you go with 3, Ruby will be fully powered and you will gather storm data more quickly. No matter how many you create, be sure to gather some extra organic to power them. Leave the platform packaged up for now. We'll open it once we're ready to deploy Ruby near a hotspot in the storm. You might also want to create a medium storage to take with you, but leave it packaged up for now as well. Using the medium storage will give you an easy way to transport multiple storm data nuggets back to the D-cipher. The final bit of prep work is to create a few extra packs of tethers. With all that done, there is one more thing we need to do before heading over to the storm. Open up the D-cipher control panel and make note of how many storm data you need to collect to unlock Storm Protection Level 2, along with the Counterhack key. That would be the first marker on the indicator, so you'll need 7. If you collect 9 more for a total of 16, you can unlock the maximum storm protection level. That is not a bad idea because the higher the storm protection level, the more slowly the hack proceeds when you are inside the storm. You will want one more than that, however, because you will need it for something you will create later. Okay, now it's time to make your way toward the storm, creating the tether line as you go. Keep an eye out for lash leaves along the way, as they can be a little difficult to spot in areas with a lot of organic. When you near the storm, you will be at the edge of the starting region, the Boolean Fields, and the region surrounding the storm, the Alpha Storm Peaks. The Alpha Storm Peaks region is notable for having numerous large block-like chunks of terrain at varying elevations. If you stop here and take a moment to look around, you will typically find that some of the blocks are at close elevations to each other, making a path into the region and toward the storm a bit easier than digging out or building up ramps with soil. The hazards in this region can be a bit difficult to spot for a couple of reasons. First, visibility is diminished the closer you get to the storm, which can easily mask a hazard plant. Beyond that, some hazards will take on the characteristics of the glitched trees in the region, making them even more tricky to spot since they are effectively camouflaged. Take your time, remain aware of your surroundings, and you will be fine. It also helps to stop at the edge of the Alpha Storm Peaks to survey the storm itself. The swirling hotspots are clearly visible within the storm, and those are where you are headed. If you take a moment and find one that is near the edge of the storm rather than deep within it, and that is at an elevation closer to where you are routing your path, your way in and out to that hotspot will be much simpler. So you've picked your path, you have your sights set on the hotspot. Let's go in. The moment you enter the storm, you are once again being hacked. Only it is happening much more quickly than it did back in the base game storms. In fact, if you had not first obtained the Rootkit and unlocked level 1 storm protection, the hack would be complete the moment you stepped into the storm and you would immediately begin suffocating. Because you were being hacked, your time in the storm is limited. So quickly place and open the medium platform and then open and place the Ruby on top. If you still have enough time before being hacked, connect a small generator to the platform and turn it and the Ruby on. Then follow your tether line back out of the storm. You might think you will be running in and out of that storm quite a bit to retrieve the storm data, but if you play on PC using a mouse and keyboard, you can take advantage of long reach. This is why I suggested targeting a hotspot closer to the outer edge rather than deep inside. Enter the edge of the storm just enough that the glitched portion opens and you can see inside, but not far enough that the hack begins. Now extend your terrain tool and move your cursor over the Ruby. As the storm data is collected, you will notice a tooltip for it if you move your mouse just a bit. When the storm data is complete and ready for collection, hovering your mouse over it will create an outline around the storm data, similar to the outline you would see if your cursor was over the platform or the Ruby. You can then shift-click on the storm data and it will be collected into your backpack. Keep an eye on the generator to ensure it has organic and is powering the Ruby. And watch to make sure that the Ruby is close enough to a hotspot to collect storm data. If the hotspot moves too far away, the Ruby no longer collects storm data, and you will either need to re-enter the storm to adjust the Ruby's position, or you will need to wait patiently for the hotspot to return to a location close enough to the Ruby. However you proceed, I would definitely suggest collecting the total 17 storm data you will need during one visit to the storm, just to avoid a lot of walking back and forth. If you do want to buy yourself a bit more time inside the storm to adjust the ruby to a new hotspot location, you can make the trip back to the D-cipher on your glitch shelter once you have 7 storm data. Once you have the storm data, you simply insert them into the D-cipher. If you did use a medium storage to bring some back, you can attach that medium storage to one of the medium storage slots on the glitch shelter, and they should automatically feed into the D-cipher. I say should because, well, sometimes they don't. If that happens, place one in the D-cipher manually. That will usually trigger the rest of them to begin automatically transferring into the D-cipher. Just be sure you keep one storm data held off to the side because you will be needing it. Once 7 storm data have been inserted into the D-cipher, you can open the control panel on the D-cipher and click the big green button to generate the Counterhack key. It will appear inside the D-cipher and you just pick it up and store it wherever you like. But do take a moment to check it out. Looks like old Frank cobbled together a device based on the triptych obtained from a gateway engine, along with some random other parts. Keep this handy because you are going to need it. You will have also completed the Recompile mission and can claim your reward of a portable smelting furnace. This is a very handy reward because it allows you to begin smelting resources without the need for a platform and with lower power requirements than the regular smelter. Completing this mission also restored several schematics within the research catalog, so open it up and take a look at the items you are now able to unlock with bytes. There is some rather handy stuff there, including a few vehicles that will help very soon. Let's turn our attention to the new mission, Overclocked. For this, we need to use the Counterhack key in the Alpha Gateway terminal, then repair the terminal, and then power it. I know this all sounds foreign, but most of it is actually quite familiar. If we head back over to the storm and make our way to the center of it, creating the tether line as we go, we'll find what looks like a gateway chamber. Remember, once we are in the middle of the storm, the hack ceases, so the threat level is decreased. You still need oxygen though, so that's why you needed to create a tether network. In the middle of the chamber is the large Alpha Gateway Terminal access slot where you attach the Counterhack key. When you do, the symbol on the Gateway Terminal changes to indicate it is now counterhacked and 2 Alpha Gateway shards appear. It might not be readily apparent what to do with these. There's a small slot on top of the Gateway Terminal, but nope, they don't go there. You might have spotted the section of the gateway when you entered that looked a bit different though. If you didn't, this is what you're looking for. An area of the gateway that looks different than the rest that conveniently has 2 open sections. In one of those 2 slots, there is a personal log of Lynn Carrington that you can pick up. If you hover your cursor over it, you can read it. This one is entitled Burn Book, and we learn that Lynn has a rather high opinion of themselves, but feels all of their crewmates on the Elysium are idiots. Lynn has grown bored of being stuck in the Astroneer Training Program, or ATP, and decided to hack the system to begin their nefarious plans, taking on the hacker moniker Blitz in the process. With Burn Book removed from one of the slots, you can now begin repairing the gateway by inserting the shards. Yep, it's another puzzle, though it is very simple. You place one of the shards into one of the openings and rotate it around to match the patterns. If the one you inserted doesn't match up, try the other one. Do this with both of them until the gateway is repaired. When the gateway is repaired, the 3 platforms with power plugs we're used to seeing on a gateway appear, and you are ready to power it up. The power demand is, thankfully, fairly low at 5 units per second. 3 small generators are more than enough to fully power the gateway and complete the Overclocked mission. Once powered, an odd stone appears in the gateway. If you interact with it, it functions like other odd stones we have encountered in the base game, but it looks a bit different. There are only 3 gateway chambers, with 2 being fairly close together and 1 practically on the opposite side of the planet. There is also what appears to be a gateway engine in the core. Once you have at least 2 gateways powered, you can use the odd stone just like any other to teleport from one location to another. If we head back to the mission log, we see that we not only completed the overclocked mission, but there is a new one, System Warning, letting us know the first firewall is now offline. That warning about core security is not a warning for us, however. It's a warning from the system to Blitz that their hacks are beginning to fall thanks to us. Push the big green button on this one to claim the rewards of a field shelter and a paver, both of which are going to be very handy. For some reason, you have to push the big green button twice most of the time to actually claim these rewards. So we have successfully defeated one of 3 firewalls, preventing us from reaching the core. But you might be wondering what this firewall actually is. Well, it's this. I've jumped into a brand new creative save and dug down a bit directly next to the glitch shelter. While my terrain tool can manipulate the soil beyond this barrier, I cannot proceed down there. Vehicles cannot pass through it either. I even tried to drop a rover seat down there to sort of glitch my way past, but the rover seat always just popped back up above the firewall. This first firewall surrounds the entire planet at this level, so no matter where I go and dig, I will always be stopped from going any further than this until the firewall is brought down. Of course, there are 2 more remaining. There is now yet another new entry in the mission log, this time from Blitz, called Little Bug. If you read through the text, you can see Blitz doesn't really think too highly of us and is warning us against proceeding any further. And you know what? That's fine, but it would seem we have also been cut off from communicating with Frank. I guess that would be a problem if we didn't have Frank's manual, and if this mission wasn't telling us that our next objective is to repeat everything we just did, but this time for the Delta Gateway Terminal. Before we do all of that though, now isn't a bad time to build out our base a little more, get some more research going, and start exploring the planet somewhat, all in an effort to make the next stages a bit easier. The chemistry lab is now restored, and that could come in handy to create the medium rover, which is also restored now. So let's talk about where to find resources. You have already seen that compound, resin, and quartz are readily available in the starting region. When you were in the Alpha Storm Peaks, you probably saw that laterite, malachite, and clay appeared in rather abundant quantities. Moving beyond the Alpha Storm Peaks toward the Delta Storm on the compass, we reach Boolean Fields, where we will occasionally find sphalerite, along with the other resources you found in the version of this region surrounding your starting area. The aggregate hills is mostly the same. Continuing toward the Delta Storm, you will come across the Cyber Canyon Stop Crash 6 region, which is where you will find more clay along with graphite and wolframite. The Delta Storm Peaks host quite generous deposits of titanite and ammonium. Moving beyond that, you will encounter the Boolean Fields, aggregate hills, and cyber canyons again. When you arrive at the Zeta Storm Peaks, you will encounter lithium and hematite, though the rugged terrain can make them a bit more difficult to locate. That only leaves Astroneum, which is, as usual, only found near the core. Or in this case, that region is called the nucleus. Astroneum is incredibly rare down there, and once you see it, you understand why. All of the natural resources appear in vast deposits in the 2 major underground regions as well, but we haven't gotten there yet, so I did not include them on my tour of resources. If you don't want to travel all the way over to the Zeta Storm Peaks and deal with that rugged terrain, I did have good luck finding hematite by digging down beneath the glitch shelter. I usually encountered a modest deposit of hematite around the depth of the first firewall. While you are exploring the regions beyond the Alpha Storm Peaks, keep an eye out for debris both large and small. The larger debris in the Boolean Fields and aggregate hills often have incredibly useful composite resources and atmospheric resources. I frequently find helium and even nanocarbon alloy in these, with QT-RTGs even making a few appearances. The smaller debris will often be home to very useful power producers. Down in the cyber canyons, You'll encounter debris fields fairly often, and these are usually home to batteries and solar power producers that will come in handy. It is worth taking the time to explore now before you move on through the remaining missions in Glitchwalkers. Not only will you get to see some impressive sights, you will also learn how to best tackle some of the more difficult terrain elevation differences that you will encounter. On top of that, you can pick up a lot of really useful power producers to not only get your base fully powered, but to also provide power for vehicles. The most important aspect of exploring will be to make note of where you encounter large purple pillars. We are used to seeing these in the core of planets, but never on the surface. They function just like those we usually see in the core of planets. When you get close, their gravity field will pull you in and you can walk on them. It is not a bad idea to mark one of these with a beacon so you can easily come back to it later. I promise, you absolutely do want to know where at least one of these are located. You might even want to bring along your Vault Seeker and see if you can find one of these purple pillars in somewhat close proximity to the Delta Vault. It also isn't a bad idea to mark any significant ramps you build out to ease your travels through the various terrain. By dropping beacons at key locations, you'll be able to find your way back through these challenging areas without needing to stop and build out new ramps. Be on the lookout for hazards in each of these regions. As the complexity of the terrain increases, so does the threat from the hazards in the region. And of course, in all of the Storm Peak regions, the hazardous plants can easily blend into their surroundings, as many of them will take on the appearance of the other surrounding organic and trees. Okay, let's get back to the adventure. Before you head out to conquer the Delta Storm, I'd suggest creating a buggy. You know where to find the laterite for the aluminum required for the buggy. You will also want to grab the packaged field shelter and enough compound to make several packs of tethers. With all of that created and ready to go, equip your Vault Seeker to one of the aux slots on your backpack, open your compass, then activate the Vault Seeker. You'll see a new nav point appear, and it is rather clearly deep underground. This is why I suggested marking the location of one of the purple pillars. Unless you want to spend a lot of time gathering soil over and over and over again to build a ramp, you will want to utilize these pillars to get down to the first major cave region, the oddly named Planet Area Cavern Recovered 22. If you are not accustomed to driving a vehicle onto and back off these pillars, you might want to make a bunch of tethers and go on foot instead. In fact, that might not be a bad idea in general for your first trip, as this cave region can be difficult to navigate without both a drill and a paver operating in tandem on the front of a large rover. So let's assume you're going on foot. Place the field shelter close to the purple pillar, then jump onto the pillar and drop a tether to establish a tether line. Then start digging down. If you are walking down the pillar you marked earlier that was fairly close to the Delta Vault, your trip is going to be fairly smooth. Keep digging down, adding tethers as necessary. Tether placement can be frustrating as the tethers will usually not drop right onto the pillar surface. You will most likely have to manually place each one. You will eventually punch through the terrain to be greeted by a vast underground cavern. The scale of Aoeluz is really impressed upon you as you begin to take in just how huge this cavern is. As you continue walking down the pillar, the details of the cavern come into view, and wow, is it ever a sight to behold. This is my favorite region from the expansion. Not only are these crystals incredibly beautiful, but they also emit their own sounds, lending a rather magical quality to the entire place. You can probably also see why this region can be difficult for a vehicle without a drill and paver working in tandem. The large crystals are easily removed with a drill, but without a paver accompanying it, the terrain can still prove to be a challenge. But we're on foot, so we don't have to worry about it. For now. Once you reach the bottom of the pillar, simply build a ramp angling away from the pillar and toward the cave floor, then you should be able to easily walk off the pillar. Activate your Vault Seeker again to figure out where to go from here. Hopefully you chose the right pillar and it's not too far away. Regardless of how far it is, be sure to use your compass and continue building your tether line as you make your way through this cavern. Activating the Vault Seeker regularly will help keep you on course. Once you reach the Delta Vault, it works just like the Alpha Vault did. You activate it so the keys appear, you find the right spot in rotation for each key, and then you obtain the Delta Rootkit. Just like before, you will insert this Rootkit into a D-cipher, which will grant you level 1 storm protection in the Delta Storm. It will also restore a lot more stuff in the research catalog, so we're heading all the way back to the glitch shelter to make some stuff that will make the rest of our adventure much easier. Don't forget to repackage your portable shelter and bring it with you. To be honest, it isn't a bad idea to deploy it near the next 2 storms, just in case you spend a little too long inside. You always respawn in the nearest shelter, so if you have that portable shelter nearby, you won't be facing a long journey back to resume your adventure. Remember earlier when I mentioned setting up research early on in your adventure and then seeking out research as often as possible to build up bytes? This is why. The large rover is now available, as are a drill mod 3, drill strength 3, the atmospheric condenser, medium soil canisters, storage canisters and silos, the RTG, and well, everything you need to create a very well-equipped large rover. Even the hoverboard is now unlocked if you're feeling particularly brave. I invested the time to gather the resources necessary to get a large rover with a drill, paver, and medium soil canister, and I attached a large storage to the back to hold the ruby, portable D-cipher, and some power producers. The gases I needed to make the composite resources were easy to collect, as every single resource is available at 100 PPU, so it doesn't take long to get a full canister of each. With the rover fully kitted out, I created another medium platform for the ruby and grabbed a small generator. I also brought along the Vault Seeker. Using the drill and paver on the rover made getting to the Delta Storm a breeze. So, let's take care of the Delta Storm and Gateway. And yeah, the process for completing the Delta Storm is the same as the Alpha Storm, but you'll need a lot more Delta Storm data. Use the same tips from the Alpha Storm peaks to find a pathway in that will help you get close to a hotspot near the outer edge of the Delta Storm. I also brought along another packaged medium platform and a small generator so I could drop Ruby into a storm hotspot. Then I hung out next to my rover outside the storm, periodically using long reach to grab storm data and dropping them into the portable D-cipher. I did have to move the platform and generator a few times to keep them near hotspots, but that isn't really a huge issue. Do keep an eye out for cataplants, as they can often hide around corners, ready to fire their explosive projectiles at you the moment you're in range. Once you have at least 7 storm data, you can create the Delta Counterhack key with the D-cipher and head into the center of the storm to repeat essentially the same process as the Alpha Gateway terminal. Though I waited until I had 24 so I can unlock Storm Protection Level 3. I then drove my rover right in, using the drill and paver to make a nice, easy path to the center of the gateway chamber. Once you're in the center of the storm and at the gateway, drop the Counterhack key onto the platform and pick up the 3 shards. Now, look for the broken area of the gateway. I'll be honest, it took me a minute to find it, as it was on the back side of one of the outer columns of the gateway. I really only found it when I did because a tooltip for Blitz's next personal log, Magnum Opus, appeared on screen. Since this was right on the edge of the gateway, I was also at the edge of the eye of the storm, so I had to be careful to avoid stepping back into the storm and getting hacked. This location only had 2 broken spots, however, and I had 3 shards. So once I figured out which 2 would repair this location, I tracked down the other location on the inner edge of another outer column. With all 3 in their proper location and the gateway repaired, I plugged my rover into one of the power plugs and powered up the gateway. With the Delta Gateway powered, the little bug mission auto-completes without interaction. It also opens up a new system warning informing us that Firewall 2 is now offline. Push the big green button to complete this one. This will also open up the GLHF mission, Good luck, have fun, with the objectives to repeat everything we just did, but this time for the Zeta Gateway. It's kind of handy that Firewall 2 is now offline, because the Zeta Vault is even deeper down in Aoeluz. Like, really deep. If you open your compass, then activate the Vault Seeker, you'll see what I mean. You can either head back to the same purple pillar you used earlier to reach the first cave, or you can head down a different one. A word of caution with the paver on these pillars, however. Gravity is weird on the purple pillars, and the paver very rarely wants to create soil on the same plane as the pillar's surface. So it's best to just use the drill to punch through the terrain, and then slowly drive down the pillar. Once you reach the bottom, get out of the rover and build a ramp away from the pillar and onto the cave floor. Once you're down there, activate the Vault Seeker again to get a good idea of its general direction. It is still one more cave layer down, but at least you know which direction to head. Once the Vault Seeker is pointing pretty much straight down, find another purple pillar going down and start digging. Again, I just use the drill or even dig by hand if using the drill on the rover proves too difficult. Once you do reach the bottom, build a ramp off the pillar, and then take a moment to appreciate how cool this new region is, despite its odd name of Cave Test 016 _ Test B _ Testing _ Work in Progress Test _ Test. You know, I really hope these cave names are indeed just a work in progress that weren't finished in the preview version of the game I played. These caverns are pretty amazing. They deserve equally amazing names. Anyway, activate your Vault Seeker once again and work your way to the Zeta Vault. You know what to do by this point. Activate the vault, complete the puzzle, grab the Rootkit. Put it in your D-cipher to unlock level 1 Zeta Storm Protection and restore even more items in the research catalog. Now head back to the surface and make your way to the Zeta Storm. I did take a detour back to my glitch shelter to spend the time and bytes to create an RTG for my rover, but it's up to you if you think it's worth it. I encountered quite a bit of ammonium and lithium in the cavern, and it was the first time I had seen lithium at all since I had not yet ventured into the Zeta Storm Peaks. So that also means it was the first opportunity I had to create an RTG. While I was able to create a portable oxygenator if I wanted to, I had not yet found a QT RTG, and I was concerned about keeping a portable oxygenator powered. So instead, this time around, I created a regular oxygenator and left it packaged, and took along a packaged medium platform, then made my way to the Zeta Storm Peaks. The rover with a drill and paver made reaching an elevation on level with the gateway fairly easy. I drove the rover inside, turned on Ruby, and then headed back out of the storm. I opened the medium platform and oxygenator and just chilled outside while I listened for storm data to be collected. I had to reposition the rover a couple of times as hotspots moved around, but it went fairly quickly considering my portable D-cipher was also on the rover, so storm data could feed directly into it. You will once again need at least 7 to unlock Storm Protection Level 2 and the Counterhack key, but you will need 32 if you want to unlock Storm Level Protection 3. Keep your eyes open around this storm, as the Zeta Storm and Gateway is chock full of attacti that want to blow you up. Once you have your Counterhack key, the process is essentially the same as the previous 2 gateways. Drop off the Counterhack key and receive 5 Zeta shards. Find the spots for the shards and collect another personal log from Blitz. This time it's core values, and I found it on the lower edge of one side of the gateway, with the other 2 locations for shards being on the outer portion of columns towards the edges of the gateway. Do take a moment to read core values. It would seem Blitz is trying to delete the crew of the Elysium along with all of us. With the gateway repaired, you can power it up and complete the Good Luck Have Fun mission. A new mission, Data Compromised, appears, and the system is informing us that Firewall 3 is now offline, and the planet core is exposed. Push the big green button to complete this mission so the next one, GGEZ, can open up. Read through GGEZ and see Blitz's chirping and their unforgivable decision to corrupt Frank's data so he can never leave the ATP again. Then push the big green button again. And you know what? Good old Frank is back with Mustache and the Machine. Legend, Frank. Read through the text, and make note of the objectives. Get to the core, bring down the core firewall. Get ready, friends. Astroneer is about to become a platformer. I am not even joking. I did take the long way to the core so I could return to my base and create a portable oxygenator. I wasn't sure what the situation in the core was going to be, so I wanted to be prepared. I also equipped a small generator on my backpack and then filled up several slots with organic to keep it all powered. I hope you marked the purple pillars you used earlier with some beacons, because you're going to need them again. If not, it's not a huge deal, but I would suggest finding some purple pillars to make most of the journey. I didn't, and let me tell you, I spent way too much time collecting soil trying to build ramps down through each of those massive canyons. I also made the mistake of not looking for a pillar that led down to the final cavern into the core. I had to make numerous trips back up to the cavern to refill my soil canister. This core, or the nucleus as the compass identifies it, is more Swiss cheese than even Visania's core. I finally cut my losses and built my ramp over to a pillar. I then walked down the pillar, dropping a beacon at the end of it so I knew which one to walk back up when I was finished. Once you're in the core, use your compass to find Frank's DEM. Don't ask me what that acronym stands for, I have no idea. But once I found it, I did learn that it's Frank's core firewall override. All you have to do is walk up to it to activate it to trigger a great cutscene and complete Mustache in the Machine. Unfortunately, Frank's DEM did not work, and Blitz has unleashed storms inside the core itself. In the eye of each of those storms are Counterhack keys that you need to retrieve and place in the matching terminals on the platform below. Frank thought ahead and realized this could be a bit tricky for some Astroneers, so he also summoned a field shelter that he has dubbed an emergency redeploy station. So if you mess up down here, at least you won't be traveling all the way back from the surface down to the core. On the upside, it would seem that the storm protection level you unlocked for each storm is active in their corresponding storms down here in the core, so I hope you took my advice and maxed out your storm protection levels. Now, let the platforming begin. Looking to the sides of this platform, you can see smaller structures that lead up into each storm. Gravity is almost non-existent down here, so it doesn't take much to jump from one to another. Having a jump jet helped out quite a bit, but even in moments when it was not charged up for another use, simply keeping up my momentum seemed to help me scale up to the top and into the eye of the storm. It might take you a few tries, but you will get it down. It's platforming, sure, but it's not difficult platforming. Alternatively, you could also return to the upper part of the core with the Swiss cheese terrain and simply jump down into each storm and try to aim for the eye. In fact, the Zeta Counterhack Keys platform is up high enough above the core that I was able to simply walk across the terrain up there to get to it. It's your call, but whichever approach you take, you need to retrieve all 3 Counterhack keys and place them in their matching terminals. Each one has a symbol on its side that corresponds to the symbol on the terminals, so you won't have to play any guessing games. As you place each one, its terminal vanishes, and when you place the final one, another cutscene is triggered, also completing the Eye of the Storm mission. When the cutscene ends, Blitz's final personal log appears, as does the only thing ever approaching profanity in Astroneer. This one dates back to the fateful day aboard the Elysium, where everything went out of control. Okay, so am I alone in wishing that Blitz wasn't glitched out of the ATP and that I could have kept them as an angry little pet in a terrarium? That would have been incredible. Alas, it wasn't meant to be. Anyway, you're now free to move about the core as long as you like, and marvel at how a very broken version of the Sunroom's control panels were even able to function as the control center for this elaborate hack. There is also an oddstone that will let you teleport back to any of the surface gateways. But I drove a rover down here, so I get to drive back out. You can also interact with Frank, or his Mustache, to read a few messages from him. And if you really want to stroke your own ego, keep pressing read when you're done and have Frank call you a hero a few hundred times. And that's it. We're done. Oddly, data circuit models C and D never entered the picture. I actually thought they would at some point since I encountered them in debris on Aoeluz. Maybe I overlooked something, but I doubt it. I suspect there is still something more to come for those data circuits, and it will probably happen in the base game. That isn't to say the data circuits have been entirely irrelevant. In fact, if you read the bit of text available on each one, you will discover that Frank was at work trying to fix the training simulation for quite some time. Not long after, Frank realizes there is something more going on as the simulation seems to be undoing all of his patches and operating seemingly with agency. Then Eva goes offline, something Frank referenced back near the beginning of our adventure today. When we move on to the data circuits model C, we see Frank encountering more errors with the training simulation and coming to the realization that there is actually someone inside the simulation causing these issues. We also see the first message from Blitz. And in data circuits model D, Frank uncovers the hacker's name. Blitz does a bit more chirping, and Frank realizes that we are facing an egotistical, yet highly skilled adversary. It's all a nice bit of lore that has been setting up the story of Glitchwalkers over the past year. With everything wrapped up, you can claim your rewards of the hacker suit, eternal review visor, and coated couture palette, along with the unlock schematic for the hydrazine jetpack. You are now free to do pretty much whatever you want on Aoeluz. Just one word of caution. Somehow, we failed to knock the storms offline, so they are still very much present and they can still hack you. But I suppose that's fine considering we did stop Blitz from deleting every instance of the ATP and everyone that is in it, including us. I know this video has been a long one, but I hope you found it helpful. I know I could have knocked it out in multiple videos instead, but the timestamps should help you jump to the portions you need help with. And if you enjoyed this comprehensive guide, then be sure to check out my Astroneer Academy series. It is a full guide to every aspect of Astroneer, from the moment you make landfall to mastering the solar system and beyond. And as usual, don't forget to leave a comment letting me know what you think of the video and maybe even drop a like. Until next time, I'm Brandon, reminding you to stay vainglorious.